Hello everyone. This is Luminousz Ztarr. Welcome to the channel. All of my current subscribers, mwah, thank you girls and thank you guys so much for joining me today for this live stream. And of course, I want to thank you for being a part of our Ztarr family. Now, today, I'm going to try not to be on live for a long period of time because sometimes I know when I start to get into the live stream, I can go for sometimes 2 to 4 hours. I think that was my longest live stream. But anyway, I'm so glad that you all are here with me today. But I'm going to go ahead and wait for some of you to really start coming in. And hi, George. So glad that you can join me today. But before I really get into the live stream, again, I want everyone to start coming in. And I hope everyone have their libations and some snacks and everything. And I'm going to try not to go for more than about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Today, I want to talk about the importance of detaching from narcissistic codependent relationships. Okay, I see some of you guys starting to come in. I'm so happy to see you all. Hello, I off the tiger. Okay, that's a little different. Hello. Is it Riz? Hello, Just Be Real. Hello, William Davis. Hello, George Dean. That's interesting. My father, who has passed on, his name is William Davis. Hello. Melanie, hello. Thank you for joining us today. And I want to go ahead and let everyone know that sometimes when I go on live stream, I like to just go ahead and do it spontaneously or just do it, just to come on. If I feel like I want to do a live stream, I would just go for it. So I hope you all can forgive me for that. Usually I try to give some notices, but sometimes when I really feel like I really want to talk about something and share something with you all, I'll just go ahead and go on live stream. Okay. So I'm so happy you all are joining me today. And let's see. Now I did take a few notes and I want you all to scroll up to the beginning of the chat. And there's a link there for the slide presentation, just in case some of you want to follow along as we get further into the live stream on our topic today, which again will be detachment, or the importance of detaching from narcissistic codependent relationships. All right, so I'm just going to look and see. And don't forget to like, okay, as you all come in, please like this live stream, like the video, and actually share it. Okay, let everyone know how much you enjoy the Luminousz Ztarr channel and what great resources and information that I share on this channel with you all. Donna, Just Being Real, hello. Gina, Roby, hello. Melanie, hello. I think I saw you up there earlier. Hello. All right. Okay, so I went on and jot down a few notes, but I wanted to see if I could do the share screen, but instead of doing that, I want you all, if you would, and of course this is your choice, just go up to the beginning of the chat and get that link there. Now, of course, at the end of the live stream, I'm going to be posting the live stream, and in the description box below, that will be another location where you can get the link to the slide presentation. Okay. Hi, Tara, my moderator. See. All right. I wanted to try to start the live stream this morning, but y'all, I'm not gonna say it was a hard week, but it was a long week, and I slept in this morning because I was gonna do it this morning, but I was like, you know what? I need to get my Z's in. George Dean, I was detached for almost 3 months, but I made contact last night. Just to blame and eventually being put out after being called a bunch of names. Oh, okay, George. Well, here's some love for you. Mwah. And I'm so glad that you were able to join us today. Hi, Janice. Is it Janice? Janice Perkins. Hello, hello. Roy, hello, hello. Universe, hello. Thank you guys for joining. All right, so again, like the live stream when you all come in, please. Like. All right. So I'm assuming you all can hear me loudly and clearly, and you all can see me. Hello, T-Man. Hello, hello. All right. And don't forget to, for everyone who's joining me, I just want to remind everyone that the link to the slide presentation that I'm going to be going over for this live stream is at the beginning. There's the link there for the slide presentation. Okay, so scroll up and you will find the link to the slide presentation. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about detaching and the importance of detaching from narcissistic codependent relationships. Because a lot of us, you know, we already know the roller coaster ride, the drama. Okay, sometimes we feel like we're looking over our shoulders. You know, I don't mean to sound like I'm speaking for everyone, but I'm speaking from all of the testimonials that I've received in person and even online, you know, such as the emails. Some of you have been sending me emails. I have been chatting in private with some of you all. So this is some of the common themes that I'm hearing about. Sometimes, you know, feeling like you have to look over your shoulders because sometimes those narcissists, they will have those flying monkeys. And we know about those flying monkeys, right? And they can play some dirty games. All right. So people are still coming in. It's good. All right. So let me go ahead and bring up my slide presentation. And one more time, I will mention the link to the slide presentation. Okay. You can find it by scrolling up. I know I sound like a broken record, but people are still coming in. So scroll up to the top of the chat and you will retrieve the link to the slide presentation. And of course, after I post this live stream, for those who missed out on the live stream, or if you want to look at this live stream again, you will find in the description box below the link to the presentation. All right, so the importance of detachment from narcissistic codependent relationships. All right, so the topics of discussion. Let me bring up, well, first of all, hold up. Let me do this. First of all, are you all able to see the link to the slide presentation? Because Tara just brought up the link for me. And if you would not mind, please, Tara, bring it up periodically throughout the live stream. Thank you much. All right. Oh, so if you all can, if you just go up to the top, go all the way to this top, go all the way to the beginning of the chat, and you will find the link to the slide presentation. Now, I can see where I did it, but no problem. I will just, let's see. Let me see if there it is, guys. But Tara's she's gonna bring it up for me periodically. Okay, now I just went on and posted it up. Okay, it should say docsgoogle.com. Can you all see that? Okay. Let me go ahead and do something else here. Share. Okay. Copy link. Copy. Done. All right. Boom. All right, guys, bear with me. There you go. All right, you guys let me know if you can see it or not. But as long as you can hear and see me, then we'll go ahead and we'll go on with that. But at the end of the live stream, I'm going to be editing and posting anyway. In the description box below, the link will be there. Okay? All right, so T-Man says, got it. Melissa, she sees it. Great. All right. Okay, and thank you so much, Tara, for posting it periodically. So she's going to be posting that ever so often for me. Okay, all right. All right. So let me go ahead and bring up the slide. Okay. And guys, please don't forget to like the video as you join us. Okay, so now let me bring up my slide. Okay. All right. So the importance of detachment from narcissistic codependent relationships. Now, narcissistic codependent relationships, of course, when we're dealing with two components, which is codependency and narcissism, this can compound the effects of that relationship. Okay, it's already a dysfunctional relationship. So when we're going through a lot of stuff, such as health issues, okay, from the drama, from all the shenanigans that they pull, right? Now, most of us, we're dealing with more than one person that has a cluster B personality type. Now, some people, they think or they misconstrue that. This is what I used to do. Whenever I heard narcissist, I'm just thinking it's just one type of person, right? With a particular type of personality. But what I didn't know was that cluster B personality types, okay, not all of those cluster B personality types are narcissists. Okay, so it's very easy for us to misconstrue that. Now, no worries. I'm not I'm not suggesting to take this person off the hook. They still pull shenanigans. They still do things that really they ought not do. But the bottom line is, I think it's very important for us to really know who we're dealing with and what we're dealing with. And one of the best ways to do that is to make sure we understand what cluster B personality types are. Okay, so we have the histrionic, we have the borderline, we have narcissistic, which most of us know about that one, and we also have the antisocial. And all of these consist of a cluster B personality type. Now, the reason why I mention that is because not all of those cluster B personality types are narcissists. But see, as we break it down that way, it's obvious. It's obvious that not all of those individuals would be narcissists. Because again, you have the four aspects of that cluster: histrionic, narcissistic, antisocial, and the borderline personality. But sometimes we can misconstrue this and we can get this mixed up. But okay, now we're going to be talking about three things here: the insecure attachment styles, which also can be inappropriate attachment styles. Then we're going to be talking about the contrast as the seed of detachment. And of course, I'm going to be going over tools, references, and resources with you. All right. So, all right, let's get on with it. And I hope you all have your popcorn, your snacks, your libations, because I think we're going to be here for at least an hour, but we're going to try to have some fun here today, right? Okay. Okay. Now, what is the purpose of learning the value of detachment? Now, I'm going to go ahead and start that out with my own personal experience. One of the things that detaching has done for me was to help me boost my confidence, to help me to see that it's possible to have other types of relationships other than negative or unhealthy relationships with cluster personality types, right? Before I had the contrast, I thought that narcissists were everywhere. Cluster personality types were everywhere, not only on the home front, but at work or on within the job force, right? The workforce. I just saw them everywhere. But this is why the contrast is very, very important. But I'll get to that in a minute. Now, the purpose of detachment for me was also to boost my confidence. It actually increased my self-esteem, because when you're in a relationship with a cluster B personality type, there are many times that not only your health will be compromised, but you will also suffer from low self-esteem, which is actually moves right into not loving yourself enough. And then you're not going to really be able to see that it's possible to have positive relationships with other people. Now, we live in a world today where there are more and more people. Now, you all can comment in the chat about this, but I think we all can agree that today we're living in a world where more and more people are becoming accustomed to spending more time alone, whether or not they're in relationships that are romantic, friendships, business partnerships. I don't care what type of ship it is, but there are more and more people who are becoming accustomed to spending more time alone. Okay, so there could be various reasons for that, but I think we all can agree that we're starting to see more and more signs of this. And some people can blame it on technology or blame it on social media. A lot of people are on social media, and I say use social media as a tool, not a crutch, especially when we're talking about narcissism. Okay, which in my opinion, pathological narcissism is on the rise. That's debatable, but to me, it's pretty clear that it's on the rise. But that's my personal story about detachment. It helped me to love myself more, to appreciate myself more, to see more of my positive characteristics. Because when you're around narcissists and cluster B personality types, one of the things that happens is that not only will you see that you have a poor self-image, but again, this weighs on the spirit. This type of relationship, it just weighs a person down. You're just thinking about, okay, well, how can I please him or her? What can I do? You're walking on eggshells. It's like, I can't do anything right. You can't satisfy the person, no matter what you say, no matter what you do. First of all, narcissistic personality and the other cluster B personality types that I mentioned, usually you walk on eggshells because they're very sensitive. These individuals, according to the DSM-5, okay, they are emotionally erratic. Okay, in other words, they're emotionally, they don't regulate very well. Okay, but of course, don't take my word for it. Please do your research. According to the DSM-5, the cluster B personality type, out of all the clusters of personalities, such as the cluster A, cluster A, cluster B, and cluster C, but out of all those three cluster personality types, it is the most complex one is the cluster B. So the cluster B personality type is the most complex because it is a fixed personality type. Whereas the cluster A personality, okay, and the cluster C personality, they're more flexible to change. They're not as fixed. Actually, they're not fixed at all. It is only the cluster B personality type that is fixed. So what does that mean? More than likely, they're not going to change. Okay, and this is often why they also go stealth or under the radar, whereas it pertains to the mental health care industry. They can go under the radar. They're not easily as detected. Okay, now I'm not saying this is always the case, but this is also one of the reasons why it is very tough to get them to see a counselor. And even if they do, this is often why they also end up manipulating counselors. Now, I'm not saying that counselors are stupid. or incompetent. What I'm saying is, according to the way that the cluster B personality type functions, see, they can go stealth, they can go up under the radar. And because they emotionally do not regulate, what is their strongest suit? It's mental, not emotional. So they can play mind games like no one else. Okay, so I hope that's clear to everybody. But this is one of the things that I think is very important for us to realize, because when it comes to detaching from the cluster B personality type, this is one of the reasons why it's very challenging. Because the person who attaches emotionally to such a personality type, such as the cluster B, yeah, they're going to be going over a lot of emotional roller coasters, right? It's going to be an emotional roller coaster ride, because you're dealing with a person who's mentally strong. Not saying that doesn't mean positive, by the way. You know, you ever heard of an evil genius? You ever heard of someone who's very cunning, but they're evil? Like a Svengali narcissist? They play with the mind. Okay, they play with the mind like no one else. They have a lot of abracadabras in that trick bag. Okay, they're very good at it. So when a person like you or I, who may not have a lot of issues with emotionally regulating, in other words, we feel certain things, we feel empathy, we even feel sympathy for people. The narcissistic personality especially lacks that, or lacks those qualities. So when you are a person who feels and you're dealing with a person who doesn't feel, let me strike that. Forget what I just said about the feeling. When you're dealing with a person that emotionally does not regulate, but you do, one of the reasons why mental health can actually occur is because the person is trying to use their mind instead of feeling. They put their feelings on the back burner because they're dealing with someone who doesn't feel as much, or they don't attach as much. It's not that they don't feel at all. That's why I said scratch what I just said. Scratch that out. I meant to say that the person doesn't feel as deeply. They don't connect as much. So you, a person that's able to do that, and you're dealing with someone who doesn't do that very well, that can cause conflict and tension in the relationship. And not only that, you tend to, in order to please the narcissist and the cluster B personality type, you tend to put aside what you're best at, and that is feeling empathy. You're able to feel. You're able to feel joy, express it even. See, when you start to express, the narcissist starts to exploit. So you're dealing with a person who's up here a lot, okay? And you may tend to be more in your heart. I'm not saying you wearing your heart on your sleeve. I'm saying you tend to feel more deeply. And you're dealing with a person who doesn't do that. They're more superficial. So this is where mental imbalance can occur. Now, I'm not saying it does for sure or for certain, but it could. Because when you're trying to make sense out of what doesn't, that's when mental imbalance can occur. They call it crazy making for a reason. And I think that's one of the reasons. Narcissists and cluster personality types, they tend to be masters at the crazy making. So when you're dealing with that person and you're trying to connect with them, you love, you care, you feel empathy, but you're dealing with a person who's shut down in those areas, then yeah, mental illness can actually be a problem. Because when you're talking about your health being compromised, I'm talking about not just your mental health, your physical health, emotionally. Okay, you can feel, but then you start to question when they start to gaslight. Neuro-linguistic programming at play. They're playing with your mind. Okay, so instead of you staying in your body and you're able to feel, so you're trying to make sense out of what doesn't. And when you start getting out of your heart space and you start going up here, trying to figure out somebody who's already up here a lot, then that can cause a lot of tension. That can cause a lot of confusion in the relationship. and mental, well, I'm just gonna say, instead of just saying mental, I'm gonna say your overall health can be compromised. You're not supposed to see, that's not supposed to make sense to a person like you and I. See, the narcissist and cluster B personality type, they're very comfortable with playing those type of games. Okay, so you have to check out your gamesmanship. How are you playing the game? A lot of us try to figure out how the narcissist or the cluster B personality type is playing the game. Okay, it's okay to be mindful of what they do, but to sit there and try to calculate every move and how they do it and why they do it, again, mental health can be compromised. Your overall health can be compromised. Okay, so the purpose of learning how to detach is imperative for all those reasons, and more. Because this person, once they get into your head, sometimes it's a wrap. Okay, so a few things can happen here. You can restore your self-awareness, increase confidence, raise self-esteem, improve overall health, and see the possibilities of having positive relationships. And as I was talking about before, the contrast is imperative. When you have that contrast, you have the apples and you have the oranges, and you can compare the two. You can compare positive, healthy relationships to unhealthy and negative relationships. So you have your cluster B personality types over here, and you have everybody else over there. And you can see both groups. So that way, every time you go to the job, you're not just seeing cluster B personality types, even though they're there, but you're not just seeing them. And your energy is not drained because you're not focusing only on them. When you go to the job, you're trying to not only get paid, but you're trying to come up. I certainly hope you are. You're trying to get promoted, right? How can you do that when you're focused on cluster B personality types on the job, on the home front, or in the home front, right? So you think you see them everywhere. Yeah, they are on the planet, but there is, how realistic is that they're everywhere, that everyone is a narcissist or cluster B personality type? Highly unlikely, therefore not realistic. So when we have the contrast, okay, I don't mention this one as much, but there are three things that the contrast, three things, but there's a fourth one that I don't usually mention, and that is, okay, now I'm going to go over the three first. The contrast has harmony, peace of mind, and also has balance, right? So when we have those three things, this helps us to look at those two groups that I just mentioned, the apples and the oranges. Okay, positive relationships, not positive, or negative relationships, right? But there's one more thing that this can provide us. So when we have the contrast, it helps us to focus on how to thrive forward. Okay, now I don't mention that one too much, but the contrast, when we have the contrast, we can focus, because otherwise you're going to be drained of energy. How can you focus and thrive forward when you're trying to please narcissists and codependents everywhere you go? Because they're not unfamiliar with codependency. Codependency encourages a person to stay in the sunken place, to stay stuck. They can't see beyond where they are, right? So I just wanted to mention that, because this is also why detachment is very important. You have to get away from this stuff. But when you are learning how to detach, you have to also be focused on how to thrive forward past narcissistic codependent relationships. Now, let's get into the insecure attachment styles. I mentioned one already, codependency. That's an insecure attachment style. Pathological narcissism is another insecure attachment style. Trauma bonds, okay, that's another insecure attachment style. Now, when we're talking about trauma bonds, I'm gonna go to that one first. Trauma bonds can be toxic ties, and that can be the soul ties. I know you all have heard of soul ties, but anyway, when we're talking about trauma bond, Trauma bond can also cause enmeshment. So when you're in a relationship with someone who's playing with your mind, okay, and you're coming from now this is just not only romantic relationships. This can be any type of relationship that you can think of. But let's just say, for instance, it's a romantic relationship. So you can be trauma bonded to your partner. Okay. So for instance, your partner can have, you may or may not know that they have the backstory, how they became traumatized, if they're traumatized at all. Because some cluster B personality types are not traumatized. Don't be fooled by that. Some of them are, some of them aren't. But let's just say that you have a partner and the backstory is, or the background or their history is that of trauma, okay, due to being abused in some sort of way, shape, or form. And let's just say that you have a similar background. All right. There may be, you may have been a person who grew up within an alcoholic family. Okay. A lot of family members abuse alcohol, maybe substance abuse. Okay. That's your background. All right. This is just an example. So so both of you are trauma bonded because you're in that relationship. You're two people who are a part of a relationship, whereas you haven't tapped into resolving your issues of the past. What caused you to become traumatized? What caused that person to become traumatized? Okay, so there you are. You two people in a relationship, and you neither one of you have dealt, or maybe one of you has not dealt with resolving childhood issues or childhood trauma. Okay, so that can be a trauma bond. So two people, when they have a trauma bond, there can be enmeshment. That means you don't have a clear sense of your own identity. They don't have a clear sense of theirs. And they may not even care, right? They may not. And this is another way that they show that they don't care to connect with you. Show me a person that really doesn't know him or herself, and I'll show you a person that is not genuinely connected to others because they don't care to be. They don't care to be connected to. I mean, that's just like me, trying to connect to you, and maybe you're not very interested in the connection because maybe you have some issues that have not been resolved from your childhood, or vice versa. Okay, so this is why this would be considered an insecure attachment style. Insecurity, when we think about insecurity, what we think about avoidance. Okay, so this person may avoid. Some people who are avoidant, they call them love avoidant. That's part of the codependency right there. You have one person who loves too much and the other person doesn't love enough. That should sound familiar to everybody that's watching this live stream. Okay, so sometimes we are involved with people who just don't love enough because emotionally they don't regulate. Therefore, they lack empathy. See how all of this is coming together? Okay, so trauma bonds is an insecure attachment style. Pathological narcissism, of course. Okay, that kind of goes without saying, because when we're talking about narcissism, we're talking about people who lack empathy anyway. We're talking about people who, I'm going to go ahead and put it like this. Having a relationship with them can be problematic because of the way that they choose to relate to other people. Okay, just the way they choose to relate to other people can be inappropriate, not just insecure, like an insecure attachment style, but it's just inappropriate. Okay, you say black, they say white. They're pulling shenanigans. They're engaging diabolical tactics, all for the narcissistic supply. See, you become a person that's a pawn. You're a pawn to be maneuvered on the game board at will, at their will. Okay, I don't care if this is a female narcissist or a male narcissist. It doesn't matter. Okay, they can be an older narcissist. They can be a younger narcissist. It doesn't matter. They tend to, is problematic because of the way they choose to relate to people. They're not interested in the deep connection. They're not interested in the intimacy. And this is not a gender thing. When I say that they're not interested in the intimacy, it's not a gender thing. Because I know, and I'm not bashing the males here, so much love to you men. Mwah, okay? But a lot of us hear how it's the males who tend to have the hardest time, having or formulating intimacy or making intimacy happen. Well, I don't agree with that, just from my own personal experience. I don't agree with that. Females can have they can have a problem too with intimacy. Female narcissists have a problem with intimacy. Okay, believe it or not, they don't show to really want it. And I'm not talking about because she has high self-esteem or she's confident. I'm not talking about all that. It's because of the issues that she has not resolved yet, more than likely from her childhood. Maybe she has a history of having a lot of broken relationships. She may come from a family that is broken. Maybe she has a single, and nothing against single parenthood. I'm just making a point here. There are a lot of, inappropriate or insecure attachment styles happen. The foundation is brokenness. Okay, so the foundation of it, or the seed of it. So when you're talking about pathological narcissism, you just got to look at, you have to look at, this is problematic because of the way that the person who may be considered a cluster B personality type, or who has been diagnosed to have a cluster B personality type, to have an inappropriate way of relating to people. See, they don't even relate to people in a very positive way. Sometimes it may look like it, and that's because, again, you remember that trick bag of abracadabras I was talking about? They have a huge trick bag of abracadabras, and usually they are on some hocus pocus. They're very mysterious. Sometimes you can't figure them out, and when you think you figured them out, they pull something else. And you have that shock and awe effect. And it's like, I can't believe they did that. And it's surreal. And then you pinch yourself. It's like, yeah, they did do that. Why would they do that? You see, and this is how we start leaving our heart space, and we start going uphill, trying to figure out how they did what they did. Mental imbalance, again, can occur because we're trying to figure out the crazy making. They call it crazy making for a reason. Okay, so let's go ahead to the codependency. So, codependency. One person loves too much. One person doesn't love enough. You have one person who wants to rescue, fix, or save the other person, right? And let's not get it twisted. There are some cluster B personality types who are not unfamiliar with codependency or codependent relationships because they're overly dependent on you, the person who's going to supply them. Okay, so until maybe say if you get to the point where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want this type of relationship. I'm done, right? And you decide to strategize how you're going to thrive forward. See, when you get to that point and the narcissist sniffs it out, whomever he or she may be, then they may go into a narcissistic rage. They call it narcissistic injury. And sometimes we misconstrue that. We think that means the narcissist was injured. Well, how were they injured? Well, they perceive an injustice. See, they're always up here. So they perceive an injustice when there was no injustice committed, but they perceive it. So they're overly dependent on other people for the narcissistic supply, whichever form it may come in. It could come in the form of sex. It can come in the form of drugs, money, material things, ego, boosting the ego. See, the narcissist supply varies. One narcissistic supply often links to another. When they go to work, say you have some codependents, pardon me, some co-workers who are cluster B personality types. It could be your, not only that, but it could be your supervisor. You may be in business. You may have a business partner, who has a cluster B personality type. But here's the thing. They are overly dependent on the narcissistic supply. One form, that's what I meant to say, one form of narcissistic supply often links to another. When they go to work, say you have co-workers, they get a paycheck just like you do, but they may be getting some other perks that you don't know about because they may be chummy with the supervisor. That's another video, by the way, or another live stream. Okay, they may be getting extra stuff on that job you don't know about. Okay, so not only are they getting paid, but what do they do with the payment? But before I get to that, another link to the source that they're getting, the narcissistic source supply, can also be the workforce, the work site. There are other bodies there that they can get the supply from, not just you, but other people. So another form of narcissistic supply can be, like I stated, the pay. What do they do with that pay? They may get some drugs. They may get some alcohol. They may buy somebody for sex. You just don't know. But one form of narcissistic supply often links to another. Okay, so this is why this whole crazy making thing, it boggles the mind, but it's supposed to scramble the mind. It's supposed to scramble the brain. You're not supposed to be able to really make sense of it. It's okay to be mindful that this happens. See, that's different. To be mindful that these things occur, that's great. That's what's going to help you. But to really try to dissect and understand every move they make, why they do it, how they do it, I wouldn't suggest doing that. When we go up here and try to figure out the crazy making, that is where the dangerous thing can happen, such as mental instability. Even emotional instability can happen. Okay, so those are the 3 insecure attachment styles there. All right. Now, the functionality of cluster personalities vary, and they do vary. I talked about the cluster A personality, the cluster B, the cluster C personality. Okay, so for the cluster A personality, these are the individuals who are deemed as eccentric. Okay, I think most of you have heard of that, some people who are eccentric, a little different, right? A little weird, but they may be good people. The cluster B personality, as I mentioned, they are the people who are emotionally erratic, or they don't emotionally regulate very well. The cluster C personality, those individuals are the people who have the anxious, personality type. Okay, they sometimes they tend to be very nervous or fearful. Okay, they are the ones that usually suffer from anxiety the most. Okay, so the other thing that I did find out, I want to share this with you all, that when it comes to the cluster B personality type, they tend to gravitate more towards the cluster, I was going to say cluster B. But some cluster B personality types do get along with other cluster B personality types. But the cluster C personality type is the personality that they tend to gravitate towards more so than the cluster A. Okay, now to me that's interesting, but I wanted to share that with you all. Now I don't know if you all found that out from your research, but I found that out that a lot of cluster B personality types, they tend to be in relationships with those who have a cluster C personality. And again, the cluster C are the ones who are more anxious and fearful. But maybe that's why the cluster B personality type geared towards them more so, because the cluster B personality types tend to be more of like an emotional bully. Okay, and I think a lot of us can think about or recall, if this doesn't pertain to you, maybe someone else when you were children, the child that got picked on the most or the one that got bullied the most were the children who showed more fear. And what happens when you don't show any fear anymore to the bully? They go away. You ever notice that? Whenever you stand up to a bully, they don't bother you anymore. But let's just think about that for a minute. Maybe that's one of the reasons why the cluster B personality type tends to marry, tends to become romantically involved with, tends to, be in relationships with, any type of shit you can think of. And maybe that's why they gravitate towards the cluster C personality, because it is the cluster C personality that has more of a issue with social anxiety, or anxiety. And social anxiety, to me, one of the prerequisites of social anxiety is to be part of a family that may be a narcissistic family, it may be a dysfunctional family, right? But that family, see, it's a group within a social setting. A family is a group. So within that social setting, if that child or those children are alienated, they don't feel accepted, social anxiety can start to develop because they're becoming accustomed to not feeling good within a group. So when they go out into the world amongst other groups, whether it's school, the workforce, just socializing with other people, they're very uncomfortable. The body remembers, even when we do everything to try to forget. So when their body is within other groups, they're triggered by what they went through as children. When they were children, they felt alienated, or they were alienated from the rest of the group, which is the family, especially if they were deemed or tagged as the scapegoated child rather than the golden child. I'll get to that in a minute. But I wanted to mention that sometimes social anxiety stems from that. So a person, when they were growing up, maybe their personality structure was not that of a cluster C. Maybe it was a cluster A, possibly a cluster B. But what I'm getting at is, because parents are very influential, they have a lot of say on how a child turns out, right? So that's not, the personality is not excluded from that. So a child's, their personality, the personality that they end up developing, such as a cluster B personality. Let's just say they started out with a cluster C, but maybe they ended up with a cluster B personality. Okay, because of the influence that the parents may have had, even the grandparents may have had on that child. And let's just say, really, parents have a lot of influence over children anyway, right? Because usually when we're children, we see our parents and even grandparents as gods. Let's just be for real. So, the functionality of cluster personality types, they do vary. They vary from perspective, and they vary in the emotional IQ or the intelligent, I think it's intelligence quotient. Okay, that IQ stands for intelligence quotient, I believe. But this is where the function, they function from each one of those cluster personality types. They vary in function, they vary in perspective, and they vary in emotional IQ. So that means some of those cluster B personality types that I mentioned, they will get along with each other sometimes. Sometimes they'll even, and I'm just talking about the cluster B personality type right now. I don't mean to confuse anyone, but where it pertains to the cluster B personality type, because of the way they function, the way they perceive, the way their emotions work, their emotional IQ tends to be low. So when they start dealing with each other, they can sometimes get along. Okay, because they're vibing off the same vibrational frequency, pretty much is level. Okay, because when we're in a room with someone And let's just say their vibe is different from ours. This is why sometimes before we say anything to someone, we can sense them, or they can sense our energy. We can sense theirs. And sometimes we don't really feel like we want to really get to know the other person. We kind of back away from them. And sometimes we can't put our finger on why, because we're on a different vibration. We're on a different frequency. Our energy is different. Energy, that they function differently. They tend to fight for dominance within a space. So if you're dealing with a cluster B personality type, that's probably why you feel uncomfortable sometimes, because their energy and your energy is fighting for dominance within a space. But when it comes to children who suffer from social anxiety, yeah, by the time they get to school, by the time they get to college, or high school or college, they see they're already revved up for that experience. They already feel uncomfortable within groups because of the experience that they had from the first group, and that's their family. So if they've been tagged as a scapegoat or even a golden child, they expect, or they unconsciously look for the same experiences over and over again, no matter where they go in life, no matter who they're dealing with, which leads me right to the dysfunctional roles. Scapegoated children are groomed to play dysfunctional roles, not only as scapegoat, but as the person that's projected onto. They're like an emotional dumping ground for cluster B personality parents and or grandparents, or even cluster B personality types within their family, period. They're usually the one who is tagged not only as the scapegoated child, but the one that others can project their stuff onto. It's very sad, but it happens. So they're like an emotional dumping ground. That's another dysfunctional role. Another dysfunctional role can be a psychological trap shoot. This is the person in the family that everybody goes to with their problems. But yet that same family member cannot go to anyone else to have a shoulder to cry on. Is a very unbalanced relationship, which is, again, a codependent relationship. And then you're dealing with a narcissistic relationship because you have narcissistic family members and you're having a relationship with him or her. Okay, so I wanted to mention those cluster personality types because some of them, they are flexible to change. Whereas the cluster B personality type, they're not flexible. They're fixed. So more than likely, they're not going to change. It's less likely that they're going to change. Okay, so this is also what makes it very, important to learn how to detach from narcissistic codependent relationships. Otherwise, you're going to probably be experiencing enmeshment, trauma bonds, like the toxic tie I was talking about, the soul ties. Okay, all of this is very, this is big stuff. So some people think that this stuff is, is all in your head. No, it's not. It's not. But because some codependents are, some people who have codependent relationships with those who have a cluster B personality type, because they're dealing with those two components, it makes it more challenging. And therefore, if they're dealing with a covert narcissist, it makes it even more secretive. It makes it less apparent to other people to see what's really going on. Sometimes it even escapes the person who's the codependent. It escapes them. They don't really, it's like a parallel reality. They're experiencing one thing in the relationship, in the narcissist or cluster personality type, they're experiencing something else. Parallel reality. It's surreal. It's a Twilight Zone effect. Crazy making in full effect. Okay, so this is why it's so important to detach. All right, so the cluster, let's go on to, and I hope I explained the functionality of these three clusters well enough for you all. And of course, at the end of the live stream, I'm going to have time for questions, okay? All right. So the contrast as the seed of detachment. So we went over why it's important to learn how to detach from this type of personality, such as the cluster B, and why it is important, or finding the value of learning how to detach from cluster B personality types and the codependent and narcissistic relationships. Okay, so what does the contrast provide? I went over this earlier. It provides harmony, it provides peace of mind, and it provides a person some balance, which is something that I think unconsciously a lot of us are looking for anyway. In other words, we don't really have to be conscious to it, but I just think as human beings, we tend to really look for those three things anyway, especially at home. We tend to look for some balance. We tend to look for some harmony. We tend to look for some peace, right? So the contrast provides these things. All right. So when it comes down to signs of trauma, now, one of the things that I think is very important to realize is the effects of trauma. Because, see, the reason why I'm talking about trauma, because when it comes to these types of relationships, this is one of the aftermaths that's very common, especially when you're talking about a child, okay, who has been exposed to the first group, which is their family. But that family has a cluster B personality type or several of them. And that child, it's like that child is born into it. That child is exposed. So they grow up either being taught to be a codependent, a golden child, or a scapegoat. Okay, so I touched on the dysfunctional roles before. Now, when it comes to the golden child, let me say something. I really didn't get into that. My apologies, y'all. But when it comes to the golden child is also groomed, just like the scapegoated child is groomed. Now, the reason why I mentioned those two is because as they grow up within such the first group in their family, right? When they're growing up, they tend to learn how to not only perceive one another, but how to deal with one another. I'm talking about this now. I'm just talking about the children right now. The golden child and the scapegoated child. They learn how to deal with one another. They learn how to interact with one another. They learn how to perceive one another. Very deep. It is very deep. So when they're learning how to deal and learning how to perceive one another, they're also learning what to think of one another. A lot of us, this escapes us. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because this is how we learn how to stay attached, which is an insecure attachment. Sometimes it's an inappropriate attachment. But I'm really going to look at the insecure attachment here. So that relationship right there, now we could just say these are siblings. That attachment is insecure. Why? Because you have the golden child and you have the scapegoated child who perceive each other. They see each other a particular way that is often not reflective of reality. Just think about that for a minute. There is not reflective of reality. Number one, because they're being groomed to perceive each other in a way that would suit the narcissist or the cluster personality type, who's like the Oz behind the curtain, orchestrating the whole thing. That's why it's not reflective of reality. Because the narcissistic parent or grandparents, they groom consciously or unconsciously those children, the scapegoated child and the golden child, for their narcissistic supply. I hope that makes sense. So this is the twilight zone that I was talking about. This is the parallel reality that I was talking about. Nothing is making sense, yet it's very familiar to everyone involved. And they're being taught that this is normal, but it's not normal. or it's not natural, I would say. But we have to think about how these inappropriate, I keep saying inappropriate, but insecure attachment styles start to develop even between siblings within a family. This is why sometimes when you're dealing with a sibling, if you are the one who was tagged as scapegoat as a child, first of all, my heart goes out to you. Okay, so you have been groomed, and say you're dealing with a sibling who's a golden child. You have to understand. I know that sometimes it's hard for us, but you must understand that they also have been groomed. Because we have to remember that just like you, they were children too. Somebody was on their brain. Somebody was shaping and molding not only their minds, but their hearts. Everything just shaping and molding them. They were being groomed. Okay, so the way you and your sibling or siblings relate to each other, please understand that all of that was orchestrated. It was orchestrated from the top, from the first, from the get, right out the gate. It was orchestrated. Okay, so that's an insecure attachment, because you both of you. Okay, let's just say is you and one other sibling, just for example. Y'all not even relating to each other in a way that's reflective. That's even positive. You're at odds with one another. You really don't even understand why. You don't even understand what's the root cause of your not really getting along with each other. And I'm willing to guess that it has nothing to do with either one of you. It was orchestrated that you two don't get along. Because just think about it. If you two were to get along and you start comparing notes about how you're experiencing the family, somebody will get found out. Somebody will get found out. The odds behind the curtain will be exposed. So, when we talk about insecure attachment, we got to think about that too. And as we move from not only our families, but when we have our own families, sometimes we end up realizing that we're playing the same role, whether that's of a golden child or a scapegoat child. We're playing the same role. We end up marrying somebody who treats us and expects us to play that role. Just think about it. Even when you go to work, same thing. You're playing the same role. It's a dysfunctional role. Or it's a role that's that of a golden child or a scapegoated child. It's all codependency, though. It's stemming from codependency. And we all, it's like we gravitate towards what's familiar. So if we're familiar with playing that particular role, we're going to seek that experience no matter where we go. And the people that we interact, it's the same thing. It's very familiar. So it's very hard or challenging to detach from such, but it's imperative to do such in order to thrive forward past narcissistic codependent relationships. Otherwise, it's like we're in the sunken place. We're stuck. We're stagnant. Scenarios repeating. Investing in one narcissistic relationship after the other. But signs of trauma, can reflect the need for detachment from narcissistic codependent relationships, right? So even a person that's showing signs of trauma, that's showing that there's a need to learn how to detach from these types of relationships. But I really hope everybody can understand the dynamic of the insecure attachment between golden child and scapegoated child. It's pretty deep, but it's often overlooked. We feel it, but we don't, it's on the surface, I think, because we talk about how we don't get along with them. And I'm not belittling that, but I'm just saying, because this is one of the common themes. We talk about how much we don't get along with them, but yet, what's the root cause of us not getting along with them? And I say it's the insecure attachment style. That was orchestrated. before we can really, before kindergarten, before we were even in school. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, signs of trauma: addiction, obsession, adverse childhood experiences, which I touched on that a little bit, complex PTSD, self-defeat or self-sacrificing, poor health, anxiety, mismanagement of anger, and I'm going to add misplacement of anger. One of the examples I want to bring about misplacement of anger is misplacement of anger can show up when we're dealing with the golden child sibling. Yeah, misplacement of anger. When, okay, what do I mean by that? You just blow up. I've done this. Sometimes anger just come out. It even shocks me when it comes out sometimes. Like, oh, where'd that come from? And when you're dealing with, say, the golden child, and this is just an example, golden child sibling, they didn't really do anything in particular, but for some reason, you're angry with him or her, but you really don't know why. Again, the insecure attachment style seed was planted when you two were children. Y'all didn't orchestrate it. You all didn't concoct this thing out of your minds, and there you go, you just don't get along. But I know there's different reasons for siblings not getting along. There's sibling rivalry. But when you're talking about narcissistic codependent relationships, sibling rivalry is on another level. It's on another level. Okay, because this is not, first of all, you're dealing with a particular group, a family that has cluster B personality types who may not be aware how they're affecting other people. Again, because the way they relate is problematic. We're creatures of habit. We stick to what we know, right? So there is problematic, just the way they relate, how they relate. And when you throw in there the emotional IQ being very low, yeah, they don't even care. Okay, they don't care about how they relate to other people. They don't want that. Narcissist is applied. All right, so the effects of trauma can be passed on. Now we're talking about intergenerational and transgenerational trauma. Okay, I've done a few videos about that. Influences personality development. I touched on that earlier. Dysfunctional roles, golden child versus scapegoat. Okay, I just went over that. But let's go up to the intergenerational and transgenerational trauma. There's a chart. If some of you looking at the slide presentation, there's a small chart here, but no worries. If you want the actual chart so you can print it out later, go to the slide presentation where it's entitled References and Resources. Or you can go to the description box below when this video is posted and retrieve the link from there under slide presentation, references, and resources. Transgenerational and intergenerational trauma. This is whereas the effects of trauma are passed on to offspring from grandparents and parents. Okay, so if your grandparents or your parents went through something that caused them trauma, the effects of that can be passed on to you when as a child. So you may start to feel the anxiety that I was talking about. That's a sign of trauma sometimes, feeling anxious. So this is a little bit different from the social anxiety that I was talking about before. So just feeling anxiety or feeling the panic attacks. And sometimes you don't even know where that came from or why you ended up that way. Well, did your parents or grandparents go through something that caused them trauma? For instance, your father may have been in the military. Maybe he fought in a war like Vietnam. Okay, so he was traumatized. Okay, so the effect of that can be passed on to his offspring. And of course, he's not aware of this. The father is not aware of this unless, he learns later that that's what happened. Same with your mom. Maybe she went through something that caused her trauma. The effects of that can be passed on to you. Okay, maybe she, you know, I'm trying to come up with something that's not so bad, but something common. But maybe your mom, maybe someone threatened to steal, take her innocence. Maybe she was threatened with rape, or maybe she was assaulted, and also, there was an attempt of rape. That's traumatic to your mom, of course. That can be passed on to offspring. Okay, so even the grandparents, maybe they, maybe your grandfather was in World War I or World War II or something like that, and he passed on, unknowingly passed on the effects of that trauma to his son, his daughter, your parents, of course, your grandparents. It starts with grandparents, then your parents, and then on to you. So that's your transgenerational and intergenerational trauma. Now, I mentioned that because this can even, now I did some research on this. When the effects of trauma are passed on that way to the offspring, this can even change or alter their DNA, or the way the DNA would read or function. I think it's called epigenetics. Yeah, so, everyone please research that. But I found that to be shocking. When I first did the research, I was like, wow, never knew that. Because some of us, we suffer things and we don't understand where that come from or what the origin of it is. Well, here you go. Transgenerational, intergenerational trauma. Sometimes our parents and grandparents, they go through things, they're traumatized, and they pass it on. Now, sometimes the effects of it is passed on. And so what this also does is it will even alter the way the child's brain functions, the development. And this is where your ACE comes in, or adverse childhood experiences. Adverse childhood experiences can be considered a child who is exposed to pathological narcissism. Again, a child can be born into it, as I mentioned before. To me, that's an adverse childhood experience. A lot of health issues stem from that. Headaches, migraines, digestive problems, heart disease, all types of things can, I did a few videos on that. But please look up ACE, stands for adverse childhood experiences. And to me, pathological narcissism could be considered an adverse experience. And if it's a child, it can be considered an adverse childhood experience. Okay, so sometimes we can just get caught up in these types of relationships, and we need to learn how to detach. And sometimes we can feel guilty for choosing to thrive forward and say, okay, I need to, I've been affected by these types of relationships for a long period of time. And now I'm perceiving a particular way. I'm thinking a particular way. I'm feeling these emotions. Well, see, when it comes to grooming from or being groomed by a narcissist or a cluster B personality type, this is what we're talking about. They can groom a person to perceive, think, and feel and function a particular way, especially when we're talking about children. And all of this is for the narcissist to supply, which is, to me, one of the top 3 reasons to learn how to detach. But of course, when a child is being groomed to please a narcissist, they're going to feel some sort of way. The child, or as an adult, say they grow up and as an adult, they want to detach. Don't be surprised to feel guilty because, again, the person was groomed to feel guilty, even for defending themselves. Think about all the times that maybe you wanted to defend yourself, or maybe you did defend yourself against a narcissist or cluster B personality type. What happened? You felt guilt, probably. You probably, second guessed yourself. You second guessed and said, maybe it was a lack of confidence. You're like, well, maybe I was too hard on them, or maybe they didn't mean that. No, you were groomed. More than likely, we were groomed to be self-sacrificing, to be self-defeating, to continue to attach, okay, to those cluster B personality types. Because whenever that's another thing that's covered. They want to make sure that you feel, and again, sometimes this can be unconsciously on the cluster B personality's part. But just think about it. When a person grooms you to behave, to please them, to behave in a way that will please them, to behave and to function and to perceive and to feel and to think in a way that pleases them, of course they're not going to like it if you're going to change. You start to demonstrate growth. You start to go no contact, or you're contemplating going. Of course they're not going to like that, because that means they lose supply. Losing supply is the equivalent of losing control. Narcissists and cluster personality types, some of them anyway, that's a no-no. That's one of the worst things that can happen. Okay, so this is, again, all of these, everything I'm talking about here, these are reasons why it's a good thing to learn how to detach. You have to, there's a lot of value in detachment, especially when we're talking about codependent narcissistic relationships, because they alter a person in a way that's not very positive. All right, so right now I'm going to go over the tools with you all, okay, and then I'm going to join you in the chat. Tool number 1, practice mindfulness. Now, what happens when we practice mindfulness? Okay, so we learn how to become more assertive, not aggressive, not defensive, assertive. Meaning, you know what you need. Well, you know a little bit more about what you need, what you want, and you're able to articulate it. You're able to give a cohesive narrative about what's going on with you in a relationship, especially if it's not benefiting you. You're able to express that without putting on anyone else on defense. That's not your intention. But then when you're talking about a cluster B personality type, they're always on the defense. You're walking on eggshells. So this is why it's imperative to learn how to detach from him or her. You may not be able to detach physically, but emotionally, you can learn how to detach. Okay, so that's another thing that practicing mindfulness does. It helps you to practice emotional discipline. You may not be able to physically detach, but emotionally, you can discipline yourself enough to learn how to detach. Okay, so practicing mindfulness also helps us to practice personal boundaries, as well as self-preservation. Self-preservation gets a bad rap. Okay, sometimes it does, because some people, especially a cluster personality type who's getting supply from you, of course they're gonna, they're gonna try to dismantle your support base by saying you're being too selfish, you're too mean, you're being evil. Yeah, they're gonna do all that. Some of you already experienced that. I know in my past I did. There was one cluster B personality type in particular. Man, they didn't like it when I started demonstrating my growth. They didn't like this new me. They didn't like it because I started to take care of myself a little bit more instead of being so self-sacrificing, okay, or sabotaging my efforts, and actually just selling myself short, not tooting my own horn enough. But when you practice mindfulness, it can help you to exercise all of these things. Practice focus intention techniques. Practice focusing on your intentions, because once you know what your intentions are, then you're very clear. It just gives you a clearer perspective on what you need to do to thrive forward. And again, due to our circumstances, see, everybody just can't pack up and leave. Okay, let's be real. Some of us, we're going to have to, instead of going up here trying to figure out the narcissist, go up here and try to figure out what you're going to do to thrive forward. For real. Okay? So practice focus intention techniques, because focus intention techniques again, will help you to stay focused. Okay, what are your goals? Not just on how to thrive forward, but what are your goals? Which that should be your number one goal, how to thrive forward, right? So focus intention techniques will put a clear perspective, will just help you to see things a little bit more clearer. Okay? Because I know we're smart, okay? We have some intelligence, right? So just go ahead and put that use to what you want to do to thrive forward instead of putting all your energy and time into the narcissist and customer personality type. Because as long as you keep on complying, see, that's what they're going to be looking for. He or she is going to be looking for that, for you to continue to comply. And as long as you comply, yeah, that they can run that relationship like they want it. So you want to consider in the last tool, consider your characteristics without harsh judgment. But remember what I was talking about, how even when you wanted to defend yourself, you felt a little guilty, didn't you? It was uncomfortable because we gravitate towards what's familiar. And when you're familiar with playing those dysfunctional roles, yeah, when you start coming up out of that, you're going to feel uncomfortable. That's where the guilt comes in. The guilt is not reflective of reality. You have no reason. It's translation. You don't have any real reason to feel guilty, but yet you do. Our bodies remember what we tend to try to forget. I don't care if it's a maladaptive coping skill, such as trying to drink it away or smoke it away, you know, whatever, or getting next to another body and, let nature take its course, whatever you need to do, okay, is maladaptive. And I'm not judging. I'm the last person that can judge somebody for maladaptive coping skills to try to forget the pain. It's a form of escapism. But our bodies remember. The body records everything, every pleasant thing and every negative or unpleasant thing that we have experienced. The body remembers. Okay, so even when you're triggered, again, try not to judge yourself so harshly for that. Do what you can do, right? Do what you can do. Whatever construct, you have a support base. Support base doesn't necessarily mean just going to a counselor, but I hope, if you have that, wonderful. But there are so many ways, there are so many aspects to a support base that can be effective for you to help you to thrive forward. It doesn't have to be, like I said, just going to a counselor. You can have a mentor, someone you trust that will hold your confidence or your confidentiality. When you tell them something, it's not going to be out in the street. Okay, but trust is a big issue for a lot of us because we were groomed, again, to behave a particular way, to perceive a particular way, and to feel a particular way. Therefore, to function a particular way that will please the narcissist or the cluster personality type. And to make sure that their false self-image thrives and survives. So now you may want to choose to not only survive, but to thrive. See, you've already survived. Now it's time to graduate to thriving. And when a person is just coping, they're not healing. You can't have both at the same time. Either you're coping or you're healing. So when we have those maladaptive coping skills, which again works against us in the long run, it's a form of escapism. But the adaptive coping skills are those constructive skills that we may have that will help us to thrive forward. That's going to be uncomfortable because it's going to take some adjustment. What is it going to take for you to thrive forward? It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be very comfortable. It's going to be very challenging because you're not accustomed, just like I wasn't accustomed to doing what was best for me. So I just wanted to share those 3 tools with you. And I certainly hope everyone will be able to view the slide presentation later. And maybe you can go ahead and print it out and use it as a part of your journaling process or not, but just to have it to look at later. And of course, a lot of things that I've gone over, you can find it in the references and resources section of the slide presentation, because I have some links there for you that you will be able to go to and check it out. Okay. All right. So I'm going to join everybody in the chat now. I certainly hope everyone is enjoying this live stream. But I know usually, like I was telling y'all before, I can go on for, I think my longest live stream was 4 hours. And I really enjoy doing these live streams, even though I don't do them a lot. But when I do, I just love the participation from all of my stars. And I'm just so glad that you all are tuning in to the channel and you are participating in the comments, because I read the comments on the videos that I put out. And then when I do these live streams, I just love it when you all participate. Now, on that note, let me go ahead and join you all in the chat. All right. Okay. All right. So what do you all think about some of the things that we discussed here? I just want to hear a lot of your comments here. Now, if there's something that you all want me to talk about a little bit more in depth, please let me know, because maybe this is something we can talk about next time on a live stream, or I can do a video on that. Okay. So, I mean, I can always use some suggestions here. All right. So I'm going to look in the chat right now and see if anyone has any questions. But before doing that, I'm going to greet some of you all. I didn't see all of you when you first came in. All right. So who do we have here? Winter Goddess. Hello, hello, hello. Ella, thank you for joining us. Hello. All right. Who else do we have here? Let's see, Just Because. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for joining us. Susan, hello, hello. So what do you all think about, this is what I really want to know. What are some of the common issues that you all face for just being in a relationship with someone who's that different? Because let's just go ahead and face it. The complex, it's just so complex. The cluster personality type is very complex. To me, number one reason is because their personality is fixed. It's like, okay, so if you know the person is not going to change, why even continue to invest in the relationship? And I get it. Sometimes it can be a sibling. It can be parents, grandparents. It can be spouses. But the bottom line is, if you know you're dealing with somebody who's that difficult, to me, the question is, why continue to participate in the relationship? I mean, at least actively. Because when it comes to family, okay, that's someone we're related to for life. But why invest in that relationship for all your life if you just know you're dealing with somebody that is less likely they're going to change, and then your health is deteriorating, your health is going down? So that's really what I want to know from everybody. What are some of the common things that you have gone through in these types of relationships, and what are you doing? I know it's a twofold question, but what are you doing to help yourself thrive forward? Let's see, let me go down here to the, let's see. What do y'all think about that? You know what I forgot to do, y'all? Do I have this thing on slow-mo or fast? Let me see something. Hope I don't have this thing on fast mode. Doesn't look like it. Y'all let me know. so Susan says, to get rid of a stalker, I found the one person. Let's see. Let me see something. Oh, I lost it. Oh, Susan says, I found the one person in the world they respected with authority and told them. Okay, so yeah, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes when we isolate, that's one of the worst things we can do, because the cluster B personality type, they're looking for that. They want you isolated, feeling alienated, and you're less likely to stand up for yourself, defend yourself. See, they're looking for signs that you behave in a way that pleases them. Because as long as you're showing signs that you're going to not support them, but, that you're going to supply them, it's not that they're cool. It's just that you're less likely to see the narcissistic rages, and even when you do, it's usually for something else. But as long as they don't see that you're going to lead the relationship, they're all right. Okay, but as soon as you start showing you're going to leave that relationship, man, they can turn into some evil. I mean, it's incredible. It's almost like, I've heard the phrase of being demonically possessed. It's almost like the devil come out of them, But as long as you're there in that relationship and they see that you're not going anywhere, yeah, they're still going to pull some stuff, but they don't seem to be as cold-blooded. I'm gonna try to go down to let's see. This thing is acting up. Okay. Self-splurge. Hello, and actually welcome to the channel. Being comfortable in the uncomfortable. Mind hijacking is real. A relative had everything in the place to get away, but at the end, they still stayed in the narcissistic relationship. Yep, that happens. That's a great point, because a lot of people who are in these, especially when it's family, they feel like they're stuck. They're, I call it the sunken place. They're in the sunken place. And sometimes that has something to do with having signs of trauma. And we're talking about PTSD and maybe even complex PTSD, because that means a person, they perceive a particular way, they think a particular way, and they maybe even feel some certain things like anxiety. But when it comes down to signs of trauma, some people, they will stay in a very, pardon my French, but a effed up relationship, because they think that's natural. They think that's normal. Even when they have ways to get out, they act like they don't see it. Or if they do see it, it's really like they don't. It's like they see it, but then they don't see it. And they are functioning in a way that is reflective of a person who's been traumatized. And that's when we're talking about PTSD symptoms. Sometimes a person that has PTSD symptoms, sometimes they behave in a way that may seem backwards to some people. Like, okay, why would they do that? They like from the outside looking in, it's like they have every way to get out, but they don't get out. But you got to remember, they're thinking a particular way. They have probably been groomed. This is possible, not always, but if you're dealing with a cluster B personality type, you may be looking at a person who's been groomed to behave that way. So even when it looks like they can leave, they will not leave. They think they deserve that, because codependency encourages us to stay inappropriately attached to other people. The insecure attachment styles that I was talking about. People don't tend to have relationships that are healthy, especially when they're showing signs of trauma. They think that they deserve to be in relationships that are jacked up. She said, self-splurge says, yes, I've had to distance myself from the outcome. Yes, and sometimes emotionally, because it's not always, when I say going no contact, guys, I don't always mean physically, because I do know that sometimes certain circumstances, we're going to have to stay in the household for a little while longer as we plan and strategize to actually move forward. But, yeah, even emotionally, you just have to go no contact. And you have to detach, okay, emotionally. And most of the time, people have to do that because it's a gradual process. Going no contact doesn't start in the mind. It starts in the mind, not in the behind. I say that. But when you go up here and you plan and you strategize how you're going to thrive forward, to me, that's very powerful. So going no contact starts in the mind, not in the behind. Because again, you're not going to always be able to just pack up and go. And then financially, sometimes some people are being abused by the cluster personality type. Some people suffer debt. Okay, they're in financial debt because the cluster personality type. And a lot of the times they have money stashed away somewhere that we don't know about it. Okay, so don't be fooled. Some of them rascals, they got money, but they want their hand in your bank account. Okay. Okay, yeah. Gina says that's my new favorite mantra. That's right. Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, I mean, if there's something you guys want me to talk about a little bit more, please let me know. I'm always up for suggestions on topics that have has something, of course, to do with narcissistic codependent relationships. Loving, what is this? Loving, what is it? Loving Annapolis or polish? Anyway, I'm gonna say loving. Hi, loving. Thank you so much for joining us. She says, hello, thank you for your videos. Lots of hugs. Thank you. We love it here at Luminous Star. We love hugs and kisses. And I want to remind everyone that you are also a luminous star. So when I come on the videos and I say, hello, I'm Luminous Star, I'm looking at you all too, okay? That's why I have that star in the background. A lot of my videos, I have that golden star in the background. Some people, I've had a couple of comments. Some people were concerned about that. But I was like, no, that golden star is in the background because it's you looking at yourself. It's you. You're a luminous star. You didn't get here alone, of course, but you are one of the reasons why you are here. You have come a long ways. You've gone through an ordeal. You've been in some dark moments, but you continue to shine. You're here. You're a luminous star. You still illuminate from within, no matter what the challenges are, no matter how dark things get for you. Okay, and when they get dark, that's your opportunity to shine even brighter. So yes, you are a luminous star. So every time you look at my videos and you see that star in the background, today I have some flowers. I have some lilies back here for you guys. Okay, but that star is you. Okay, so when I say hello, this is luminous star, is right back at you. You're a luminous star too. Okay, so that's why I named the channel that, because we can go through some dark moments, but then you have to dig within yourself. Where's that light? Because that's what's going to get you through. Once you know how you got in a sunken place, you'll know how to get out of it. It's not about why you're in the sunken place. It's not about why I get out of the sunken place. It's about how I got in the sunken place and how do I get out. That's what it's about. It's about the how, not the why. Sometimes when it comes to cluster personality types, usually it's about the how, not the why. Because if they're coming at you with why, you need to come at them with how. When they come at you with how, you need to come at them with why. Don't ever match it up. Because as soon as you match it up, that's reflective of you being accommodating to him or her. You're doing what you're playing their game. Never match it up. Never match it up. When you think about it, that's what they do with you. You say black, they say white. Just picture a burning house. You're on one side of the burning house, they're on the other side of it. You have the firing truck with the fire hose, the water to put the fire out. They on the other side. with the gasoline tank, the matches, lighting it up, and both of y'all going at it 100%. That's why nothing gets resolved. You're on one side of that burning house, they're on the other side of that same burning house. You putting your all into putting the fire out, they're putting all into keeping it ablaze. Nothing gets done. Nothing. Yeah, it's amazing, but yeah. Let's see. Susan said, I yelled really hard at my narcs. Now I have to heal the vocal cords. I have become a fighter. Well, keep on fighting. That's what you're supposed to do, because they want you to just take it all. Just take it all. They want you to swallow that blue pill. Not promoting drug addiction here, but just, an analogy. Are you going to take the blue pill or are you going to take the red pill? You take the blue pill, hey, you can stay asleep. But when you take that red pill, you see how deep the rabbit hole goes, right? Isn't that what they said in that movie, The Matrix? Anyway, I digress. XXO. Azalea, hello. Thank you for joining us. AM, hello. Says scapegoat and social anxiety connection. I am Cassandra. Yes, and usually I don't. When I do the someone just okay, yeah, my first name is Cassandra, you guys. I know some of my stars know that, but AM says Cassandra, thank you, and we love you. Mwah, love you guys too. And yeah, usually when I do my videos, I start out with Luminousz Ztarr because you guys are Luminousz Ztarrs as well. But yeah, for the record, my first name is Cassandra. Susan says, I think the society is a farm for narcissists. Wow. Yeah, I think I do think pathological narcissism is on the rise. Because when you think about, I'm not really picking on social media because I think social media can be an excellent tool for certain things. But when we use social media as a crutch as opposed to a tool, yeah, that's where pathological narcissism can raise its ugly head, I think. Because a lot of people, we are using technology. And again, technology can be used as an excellent tool for certain things. But unfortunately, some people are they're not mindful of how they're using technology. Okay, someone in the chat asks how to deal with toxic people who are not narcissists. Thank you, Tara. All right. How to deal with toxic people who are not narcissists. Okay, right. First of all, you bring up that question reflects an excellent point, and that is make sure you're dealing with a person who is a narcissist. Okay, for some people who have toxic energies, right? I mean, it's all energy, but their behavior can feel toxic to your energy. They're not necessarily narcissists, which this is why I mentioned the cluster B personality types. Histrionic, they may be a histrionic personality. That person who's behaving in a toxic way, they may have a borderline personality. They may have an antisocial personality. But let's just say they don't have a cluster B personality type at all. Let's just say they actually have one of the other two clusters, cluster A or cluster C personality. Now, let's go to the cluster C personality first. The cluster C personality is the personality that actually has the anxiety, right? The cluster A personality is the eccentric. Okay, get to them later. Cluster C personality, a person who may behave in a toxic manner, who has a cluster C personality, they may tend to want to pull you in. Negative energy actually expands. Pardon me. Positive energy expands. Negative energy pulls. So take a person who has a cluster C personality and they have an anxiety problem. They want to pull you in to their drama. That's just an example. So that's a person who can behave toxic. Cluster A personality. They may be the eccentric. They are the ones that tend to be a little bit weird, right? Sometimes some of us see the weird as a good thing. I've known some people, even back in high school, that I can think of right now, they were kind of weird. They were kind of eccentric, but so was I. So I appreciated that, right? So a person who has a cluster A personality who may act who their energy may be toxic to your energy, is that even though they're weird, they may do things that may be deemed very dangerous. So they may do something very weird or different, adventurous, but it's very dangerous, such as bungee jumping or jumping out of an airplane or something like that. And they're trying to bully you into doing it. You don't want to do it. So that's toxic to you. So what do you do about that? You have to practice mindfulness. What are the 4 things? Emotional discipline, self-preservation, and when you also practice personal boundaries along with assertion. Those are the 4 things of practicing mindfulness. So I know it was a long drawn out answer, but when you practice mindfulness, that can help keep people at bay who are toxic to your energy, because you're practicing personal. It's like having a border around you, but it's positive. You're not hiding. You're being assertive. Okay? You're practicing personal boundaries. You're practicing emotional discipline. You're not getting all caught up and overwhelmed in the situation, right? The person they're trying to bully you, you're not getting caught up. It's not that you don't feel anything. It's not that you don't think anything. It's not that you're not uncomfortable. You're practicing personal boundaries. You're practicing emotional discipline. You're practicing being assertive. You're practicing self-preservation. All of that is you're mindful. You're mindful of yourself. You're having a great relationship with yourself. So nobody can really easily pull you in. Negative energy pulls. Positive energy expands. Okay, so that right there can kind of that can cause some tension between you and the person who may be toxic towards you. And again, I know that was long and drawn out, but I hope I answered your question. I hope I answered your question. So great question. Your Majesty, Cassandra, a beautiful name. Thank you very much, Your Majesty. At first, when I was a little child, I didn't like my name very much, but when I grew up, I began to appreciate it. Eye of the Tiger question, how to deal. Okay, thank you, Eye of the Tiger. Yeah, Eye of the Tiger, because I think at first yeah, okay, Eye of the Tiger. Thank you so much for your question. Wanted to make sure I had your name correct. All right. Gina says, I always say it isn't good for anyone with a mental health care not being addressed. Okay, I always say this isn't good for anyone with any mental health issue not being addressed and treated. Well, Gina said that. So I always say that this isn't good for, I'm just paraphrasing. So I agree, Gina, this is not good, especially when they're dealing with a cluster B personality type day in and day out. And they really don't have the answers. They really don't know how to start a support base. See, some people, when I say support base, some people think I mean going to a healthcare practitioner, which that's great. But there are other aspects to a support base, such as if you want to go to an art class, art therapy, occupational therapy, that you may have a mentor. See, all of these things can be a part of your support base. Going out in nature, believe it or not. I'm not saying you have to do that, but that's part of your support base. Anything, what constitutes as a support base is anything that is constructive and that's going to help you to thrive forward past narcissistic codependent relationships. Whether that is learning how to swim, whether that is learning a new or foreign language, whether that is going to seminars, whether or not that is reading books, whether that meeting someone to play a particular playing bridge, book club, meeting certain groups of people once a week or once a month, anything that's going to help you to thrive forward and help you, that's good. See, we've already survived. Okay, so we're talking about graduating. When I'm speaking of thriving forward, that means you're graduated. You graduated or you're graduating from survival. You've survived already. So surviving is not, to me, that's not really what we need to be looking at. It's thriving. See, the narcissists don't care if you survived. What really matters to them is if you're choosing to thrive. Because if you're not thriving, that means you're just coping. And if you're not healing, that means you're coping. So if you're coping, you're not healing. Because in order to heal, that means you have to thrive. In order to cope, that's all you need is to survive. See, surviving is one thing, but when you start getting into thriving forward, that means you're healing already. You're demonstrating your growth. You've already accepted the reality that you are outgrowing. You're a human being having a human experience, and you're choosing not to invest in narcissistic codependent relationships anymore, which is reflective of your being a person who's saying, look, this is me. You're demonstrating your growth. You're accepting that you are outgrowing narcissistic codependent relationships. You're outgrowing it. But some of us force ourselves to stay in that situation. I'm not talking about physically. I'm talking about mentally, emotionally. We force ourselves to stay there. We're focused on it. How do I please this person? Oh, let me go to their social media and see who the new supply is. See, we're all up in their business. Narcissists and cluster personality types, they don't care about, they give rat's ass about you surviving. But when you talk about thriving, shit, they're like, oh, hell no, we can't have that. We cannot have that. We cannot have that because their false self-image has to thrive at your expense. But if you're not there supplying them, then their false self-image dwindles. Just think about it. So you have to, focus on thriving. And it's not always physical. Most of the time it's not physical. Everything pretty much starts with the thought, not the emotions. You think first, and then the emotions are experienced. Our emotions are our energy in motion. And when it's stagnant, this is when the health issues can come in. Yeah, so this is what I learned along my journey, because I had some health issues. I was heavier than I am. I've never been obese, but my weight used to fluctuate, up and down. My weight would fluctuate. And I had other types of health problems, and I was just going through it. And when I learned the art of detaching, when I learned the science of detaching, I learned the value of detaching. Just a lot of things changed. It started with my thinking. I changed my mind, and therefore my actions changed. My words changed. My life changed. And, I mention this sometimes, guys. Sometimes I mentioned how I was going to pull the plug on this channel. And I'm so glad I didn't. Because I really didn't think anyone would be interested in what I was talking about, the narcissistic codependent relationships or the narcissism. I mean, I knew it was a buzz, but I didn't think anyone would be interested in my perspective. A person, well, just in general, a person who wasn't a counselor, a person who didn't have a PhD in this, just a person who's gone through it. And again, I was kind of new to social media, to YouTube anyway, and I didn't think anyone would really be interested in my perspective. Not saying just me, but just in general, a person who is not a counselor, but someone who actually went through this stuff. So I'm just glad that you all let me know that this channel is something that you really enjoy watching. So thank you guys and gals so much. So yeah, I was going to pull the plug. I was going to, but I'm glad I didn't. Tara says, me too. Yeah, XOXO says, I think I am the narc supply for both of my parents. Yeah, sometimes it's not just one parent, it's both. Sometimes both parents can have a narcissistic personality type, and one can show signs of being covert while the other one shows signs of being overt. So the covert, to me, is the most dangerous because, again, it's like emotionally they are bullying you to keep their deep, dark, dirty secrets. And part of the secret is that you are being narcissistically abused. But when you keep that a secret, then see, that's another will that's interwoven in that will. And that is the silent treatment. Covert narcissism is the ultimate silent treatment. So you got one wheel that's spinning, and in that wheel, there's another wheel spinning. Okay, it's very deep when you think about it. Gina says, Winter, there was a time when I needed meds for a bit. Sometimes you gotta. Okay, just responding to someone. Someone mentioned about meds. Yeah, prescription medications. Sometimes we do have to take that for certain things like depression, anxiety. Yeah. And when I say going no contact, and it starts with the mind, not the behind. Yeah, you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait. But this is something that's hard to shift the gears to. And that is, see, sometimes we're waiting on the cluster B personality type to change. Hello, I mentioned that their personality is fixed. They're less likely to change. So you don't have to wait for them to have a change of heart. You don't even have to wait until you have a change of heart. It starts in the mind, not in the behind. So we have to we have to think about what is it going to take for us to constructively thrive forward. Because sometimes, you ever heard that saying, you take 2 steps forward and then 1 step back? Sometimes dealing with these types of personalities can feel like that. It's like you've made progress, but then it's like, okay, when you thought you figured them out, you haven't figured them out at all. But see, I say don't try to figure them out. It's about the how, not the why. Because once you ask the narcissist why they did what they did, you stay in the sunken place. They're waiting for you to ask them that question because they can lie to you some more. They can be deceptive. Some of them seem chronically deceptive. Okay, it's almost like every time their mouth moving, they're lying. It's like they're addicted to it. But when you look at how they do what they do, then you know how to thrive forward. Once you know how you got in the sunken place, you'll know how to get out of it. But if you ask the narcissist why you're in the sunken place, because you're asking them why they did what they did, yeah, it's like you're a sitting duck. You give them more opportunity. Now, I'm not scolding anyone. I'm just pointing out how we stay stuck in some of these relationships, whereas they're still getting supply from us. It's not about the why all the time. Most of the time, it's about the how. How do they do these things? Not about why they do it. They pretty much already, a lot of the cluster B personality types, they understand their nature, which is that of a predacyte. Okay, I made up a word, predacyte. They have a nature of a predator. They have a nature of a parasite. Their energy is parasitic on one hand, and their energy is draining your energy. So their energy is also vampiric, okay, or vampiric. So it's it's a lot. So this is why a lot of people find it very hard to explain to other people who have not gone through it what it's like to go through narcissistic codependent relationships. Yeah, and unfortunately, some counselors, they don't understand. Some of them do, but some of them do not. But I'm glad to see that some counselors, they're taking, it's like they're taking notes from some of us who have gone through it. And this is fine, so that way they can better help other people that go through these types of things. So that way we don't always feel like well, there's nowhere to go. There's nothing, we can do. And I'm glad to see that there are some counselors out there that are more interested in this thing called pathological narcissism and helping people to, recover from it or come up out of it or thrive forward. Gina says, just be Sally, I feel for you. Okay, wait a minute. Yeah. Okay. Kind of catching. Let me see. I want to see what some of you all are saying here. Eye of the Tiger says, we are glad that you are here teaching us. Well, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here, actually. I know I don't do live streams, but I said, well, let me go ahead and get one done today and just spend some time with you all. So I used to do more live streams, but I kind of slacked on them. So I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you all are getting something out of this. But I'm learning from you all too, because I'm glad to see that some of these things that you all are talking about, I've been through this stuff too. Self-Splurge says, your information is very thorough and clear. TY for not unplugging. Thank you for not unplugging. Well, you're welcome. And I want to thank you all again for inspiring me not to do so, because yeah, I came this close. I was like, Just because says both here, what is it? Super covert mom uses overt dad as the bad dad to seem better. Yeah. Just because brings up an excellent point. And that is sometimes when you have two parents, right? Of course, two parents, and they can feed off of each other. This is very interesting. And sometimes they even swap roles. I don't know if any of you have noticed that sometimes, but of course, as children, we don't notice this. But as adults, sometimes we may notice if we have narcissistic parents or parents who have a cluster B personality type, sometimes it's like they can swap roles, okay? Like say it's in a family setting, they may swap roles. Sometimes they usually feed off of each other anyway to keep the narcissistic supply, okay? But sometimes in order to keep that narcissistic supply, they will swap roles. Now, I know earlier I was talking about how some narcissistic personality types will have a huge trick bag of abracadabras, and sometimes they're on a hocus pocus. And, sometimes they are, because they will sit up there and they will do a switcheroo with one another, and you don't even know what's going on. You don't even catch it. Okay, sometimes it's the word salad. Sometimes it's just the mind games, the neuro-linguistic programming that I was talking about before, the gaslighting. Sometimes they would help each other. See, some cluster B personality types, they get along very well, and you're being the person that they target for narcissistic supply. So that means you have two beings here. You have two people who want something similar from you, and that is the narcissistic supply. So they're focused on you. All right. So they're in a relationship with each other. So it's not really that they're in competition with each other to get this narcissistic supply from you, but in a sense they are. But what do? So if they're married to each other, so they become one, right? They're a team. So sometimes, I hate to say this, but they're a tag team. Try to get the narcissistic supply from you. So you don't even realize that's happening, and it's happening. Okay? So they will help each other in order to get the supply that they want from you. It's very interesting how that happens sometimes. This happens a lot on the workforce, or in the workforce, I should say. Yeah, on the job. Happens a lot. Co-workers who have cluster B personality types. I've seen this play out myself. Now, my background is administrative. Okay, I've also been in the military for about 8 years. So you talking about dealing with various personality types. I've seen some things. I usually don't talk about this in my videos, but I have seen that type of dynamic play out in the workforce. And you may have some coworkers who have cluster personality types. One of them, they want something that you have. The other one, they want something that you have. Now, check this out. One of them, they may want the promotion that you're about to get. You don't know you're about to get that promotion, but you're working for it. But one of them may have heard, oh, you're up for a promotion. The other cluster personality type, they may not know about that. Just like you may not know you're up for that promotion. But guess what? You have something that they want. It may not be that promotion. It may be your man, your woman. Okay? It may be your hair. It may be your nails. It may be the way you look. They want your looks. They want your charm, how you work the office. I hope you all get where I'm going with this. The other cluster personality type, they covet your promotion. So what they're going to do, both of them are coming at you in various ways to try to get that narcissistic supply from you. So this trips you up. You're nervous. When you go to work, you hate going to work. It's a terrible environment. It's a toxic environment. That's the idea. That environment is supposed to be toxic because you're not going to be on your A game if you're off your square. Okay, so I've seen this played out in the workforce. Some people, some cluster personality types, I have seen ruin careers for sport. I've seen this. It's awful. So we have to be mindful of that as well, but not to the point where you're going to be tripped up and you're not going for yours. But some cluster personality types, they will tag team and they will seem to get along with each other. They will feed off of each other in order to get that narcissistic supply from a similar target, a person that they're targeting. Both of these people, they want, say you're the person that they're targeting. So you got two cluster personality types here, and they both want supply from you. And sometimes there's a group of them. They're trying to get something from you. And this is how sometimes our energy is drained. Our energy bodies feel drained because our energies are being pulled. Remember what I said, negative energy pulls, positive energy expands. So if you have positive energy, you tend to feel joy, gratitude, love. You tend to nurture. You tend to show yourself friendly. You tend to show yourself a person that's capable or having the capacity to love, to support, to be in relationships with people, right? Whereas the narcissist and cluster personality type, see, their energy pulls from people. It's very vampiric. They're like an energy vampire. I call them energy whores or energy hoes. Okay, sometimes it's, to me, it's like because they take them from you. They don't want to give you anything but problems. So sometimes we just have to be mindful of this. You know, sometimes when we come home from work, I've been through this. It's like you just feel drained, and it's not really because the task you had to perform at work is because most of the task that you perform at work is to keep these bad boys off your ass, so you can keep your head afloat, so you can have a job to go to, so you can have a paycheck, so you can survive, right? But not only that, you want to thrive though. But I've seen some people's, careers ruined for sport because certain cluster personality types, they covet something that they wanted on the job. Okay, but then when you're going home and you say you got more to deal with because maybe there's cluster B personality types at home too. So sometimes this is why we kind of feel there's really no hope. But I certainly hope my channel provides some hope. But I say sometimes hope is not a plan. You have to be able to thrive. You got to strategize how you're going to do it. I want to remind everyone that I do have a chat. If you want to converse with me one-on-one, go down to the description box below. There's a link there for the chat. But I want everyone to email me first. That's usually the protocol. But you email me first and let me know if you are interested in chatting with me one-on-one. and we can set up a schedule, for you. Usually I like to do this on weekends. I have chatted with some of you, and this announcement is really for those of you who haven't tried my chat yet. Okay, so that's the protocol. Just email me at luminouszstar@gmail.com and let me know you want to chat. And then I will schedule you for a particular time. Now, the chat can be 30 minutes to an hour. Okay, and it's a private chat. Okay, or the chat is in two options. We can do it like a Skype, or we can go ahead and chat over the phone. All right, so I just want to go ahead and make that quick announcement because I know some people may be apprehensive to do so because of various reasons. But I want everyone to know that the chat is available to you if you want to do that. Okay, and besides, I'll be more than happy to talk with you. Yeah, I think it'll be pretty fun. So, all right, y'all, I'm gonna get ready to wrap this up. And I think we've been going for quite some time. No, not so bad. Yeah, because I know my longest live stream was a little bit over 4 hours. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I was like, whoa, 4 hours. But we have so much fun. And like I said, when I start talking about something, I can just go on. Let's see here. XO says, I used to call my mom a vampire as a child. Wow. Okay. Winter Goodness says, yes, that happens a lot. They are pathological liars. Yeah, it's almost like they're addicted to it. And I do think that due to the cluster B personality types, lack of being able to emotionally regulate, I do think that they tend to be addicted to emotions, especially painful emotions. I think sometimes they sabotage, not only their own efforts, but other people's. And, I don't know if some of you have ever noticed this, but sometimes when you're involved with a cluster personality type, it's almost like you have bad luck all the time. Like everything you try to do just turns sour or it goes south. And I think there's some correlation to that. Just that being an aftermath or being an effect of being in a relationship that's toxic, but being in a relationship with a person who is toxic to your energy. It's almost like you're internalizing a lot of their stuff, and therefore your life seems to be overcast, or is an overcast of a shadow. It's a shadow overcasting. It's like everything you try to do just goes south. It's just like you have bad luck all of a sudden. All right, let's see here. All right, now I hope you all were getting the link to the slide presentation. But as I mentioned before, you can just go over that later. But I always like to provide the slide presentations when I do these types of things, because some people, they like to go back and look at that. Your Majesty says, thank you for everything. Have a blessed and rest of your Sunday. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you were able to join us. Roy Jones, hello. Welcome to I don't think I greeted you before, but welcome to the live stream. They are people that, he says, they are people that can't pay their light bill and want to burn your power. Yeah. Yeah, because they want to use all your stuff up. They want to, yeah, that's a good analogy there, Roy. Yeah, they want to burn your light and they can't even pay the bill. Vanity, hello, hello. Thank you for joining us. Melanie says, yes, thank you for providing the content. All right. Okay, guys, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. And again, if there's anything y'all want me to talk about that I haven't covered, please let me know. Everybody has my email address, I hope. And I do have a website. I post videos on my website. I have a Patreon. Some of you have already joined me for Patreon. So I want to go ahead and give a special shout out to all of you who have joined me on Patreon. Thank you so much. And I'm going to try to provide more content on Patreon. Okay, so those who join me on Patreon, what I like to do is I upload videos that I normally don't do on YouTube. Okay, so because those videos of sometimes I'm cooking, sometimes I'm exercising, sometimes I'm out in nature, those videos are a little bit more informal, or they're less formal. Okay, so they're kind of, it's me kind of, you know, not watered down, but a little bit more loose, because I know a lot of my videos, I tend to be a little bit more conservative. Okay, so on my Patreon, those videos, as well as the videos on my website, there are more videos where I'm like, it's behind the scenes stuff. Okay, so if all of you want to join me on Patreon, please do so. Go to my website. Okay, leave some comments. But the website, those videos, some of those videos are my YouTube videos, and some of those videos are, again, the videos that I do on Patreon. Okay, and of course, you all know about the chat. Okay, so I want you all to know it's not just YouTube. You don't have to just see me on YouTube. You can also see me on Patreon, and you can also see me at various other social media channels. Now, I also have a Facebook. Now, I haven't been on Facebook in a while, but I recently just got back on Facebook because my idea is to have our own group. So I want you all to go over to Facebook and join me there. Okay, so you can find all of my information if you go on my channel page and go to the About section. All of my links that I mentioned to my social media are posted there. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you, Tara, for posting all of the information for everyone. All right, Winter Goodness says thanks again. All right, thank you. AM, I was wondering if you could elaborate on scapegoat role and social anxiety. Okay, now I did mention that a little bit. Now, social anxiety, again, I really think that stems from when a child is a part of the family and they have been tagged as scapegoat. Because what does that do? Several things that happens to a child. Okay, when they are tagged as scapegoat. The first group that we all experience is the family. So the scapegoat, thank you so much for the question, by the way. So the scapegoat child is the child who's been targeted to play a particular role, actually dysfunctional roles, several dysfunctional roles. One of those roles is a scapegoat. What is a scapegoat? What is the purpose of the scapegoat? The scapegoat is the one that takes on all of the stuff. Okay, that stuff can be alcohol, drugs. I was going to say another word, but I'm not going to. This is not a religious program. But any of the so-called negative characteristics that you can think of, a scapegoat takes those on. It's almost like the scapegoat is blamed for everything that everybody else does that's bad. So when a child is targeted as a scapegoat within the first group that he or she experiences, there's an aftermath to that. Okay, so that aftermath can vary from social anxiety, which can blow into social anxiety. The reason why I put the word social in front of anxiety is because the family is a part of society. It's a group. It's a social group. Okay, so when that child experiences the first group, and their experience is that of a person who plays the role of a scapegoat, there could be alienation. That child is being exposed to the energy of that environment, which is pretty toxic. The child is being taught that he or she is not a person who contributes. They are not a positive person. That child is being taught some very awful things about him or herself without a word being said sometimes. But of course, eventually words will be spoken to the child. But I hope you all can get the idea of where I'm going with this, or can get the clear picture. What I'm saying is a child who suffers from social anxiety, and then when they grow up, they are an adult who suffers from social anxiety. Usually the seed stems from the first group that they have experienced, and that is the family. So when a child overall message is that they don't fare well within a particular group, then they will grow up and go out in the world and be a part of other groups, and they're not going to feel any different. They're going to feel like they don't contribute. They're going to feel very small in that group. They're going to have a poor self-image, social anxiety right there in full effect, because the group, every time we join a group, that's a social thing. It's social. So social anxiety, they don't feel very good about themselves. They're fearful of coming out of their shell. So whenever they are within other groups, or they're a part of another group, the group can be co-workers at work, can just be the workforce. That is a group, because you have other people there. They're working together. That's a group. It's a part of society. So social anxiety, again, can happen when a child is tagged as scapegoat, because that's a message. That's an aftermath. Yeah, because they're gonna, most of the time the child is feeling and or thinking in a particular way that the parents want them to think and feel and behave, which is not a person who contributes to the world in a positive way. So the child grows up to an adult, teenager, then adult, and they're suffering social anxiety. So I don't care what group that person becomes a part of, they're still playing a dysfunctional role. That of scapegoat, that's a dysfunctional role. So they're not going to feel very confident about their functionality within any group that they go to or be a part of in society. So there's where your social anxiety stems from. And again, I hope I explained that very well. And if I didn't, maybe we can talk about it one-on-one. Maybe we can talk about it a little bit more. But this is how some children who are tagged as scapegoats grow up to suffer from social anxiety, because the first group that they were a part of, they are already treated like they're not enough. So I don't, whatever group they go to as adults, they're gonna be, that's what's familiar to them. So they're gonna play that dysfunctional role wherever they go, whether it's the job, it's a business, it's school. I don't care what group it is. It's their own family. They may get married. They may have children of their own. They're still going to be playing a dysfunctional role within that group. So, it's very hard to shed off that particular dysfunctional role, and that is of a scapegoat. Because I know I've heard this. People who are tagged as scapegoats as children, they tend to marry somebody who treats them like a scapegoat. That might be their spouse, their husband or their wife, but that husband or the wife sometimes is the golden child in their family. Very interesting how that happens. A lot of scapegoated children grow up and they marry or they romantically partner with cluster B personality types who are golden children. Very interesting. And we tend to seek the experiences that we are familiar with. So a scapegoated child grows up suffering social anxiety, and they are very familiar with that. So wherever they go to, whatever group that they're a part of, they seek unconsciously to experience or re-experience that same thing, even though verbally they may express not liking it, but it's very familiar to them. We're creatures of habit. We human beings, we seek out what's familiar. This is also why detachment is very valuable. We have to learn how to detach from that, which is not very good for us. Okay, whether it's in the form of people, places, and things. Okay, so I hope I explained that well. Sometimes I get very long-winded, but I hope I explained that very well, or to your satisfaction. Harriet, welcome to the Luminousz Ztarr channel. Welcome to the live stream. Narcissists and codependents end up together because this is a battle between good and evil. Okay, that's a pretty good analogy. Thank you for your thoughts. Okay, all right. Let's see. Okay, let's go. Let's go. XOXO says, sound like me. Winter goddess, yes. Winter goddess, the narcissist, and their flying monkeys remind me of gremlins. Yeah. Anybody ever seen that movie, the Gremlins? I remember that. Gosh, that movie was wow. That's an old movie too. Winter Goddess says they mob the scapegoat. Yeah, it is kind of like a gang thing. It's like they gang up on scapegoated family members, and this is very common, by the way, especially. But again, this is also why social anxiety ends up occurring because the child has become accustomed to being in that type of environment where they're bullied, they're picked on. But when they go out into the world, like I said, as adults, they unconsciously look for that same experience, and that often happens. So this is why they end up not only in the workforce being the person who's picked on, but also in the very romantic relationships that they have. They tend to either be the person that's left, behind, cheated on. Not saying that this is their fault, but I'm saying we are creatures of habit. We tend to seek out the same scenarios that we're familiar with until we learn how to detach, and then it just dismantles that. It interrupts the pattern. But social anxiety is real. A lot of us, we have social anxiety, but we don't tend to really think about the root cause of it. We usually don't go that deep with it, but when you think about it, that's where it starts. That's where it starts. The first group that we experience is the family. And if the way you're treated in that group tends to be what you're familiar with, and that's what you tend to seek out as adults. And no matter what group it is you're a part of, it could be, again, when you're in college, when you're in high school, when you go out into the world and you're looking for a mate, you tend to pick somebody who's going to bully you or manipulate you emotionally. It's the same thing. Social anxiety, and it tends to trigger the person, and therefore they're still suffering from panic attacks. They still suffer from anxiety. It's all familiar. It feels bad, but it's familiar. And until we value detachment, it just continues. Yeah. So, all right, guys, I really enjoyed this live stream, and I'm getting ready to cook. I don't know. Sometimes I like to cook on Sundays, but I certainly hope you all enjoyed this. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up now because I'm going to have to go ahead and get ready to cook here. And I'm going to try to do another live stream soon. I'm not going to promise, but I'm going to try to do another one very soon. Okay. I know with the holidays coming up, some of you are probably going through a few things. I know I used to, when it comes to the holidays, it's like, what am I going to get this cluster personality type for Christmas? Sometimes there's alcoholism, there's substance abuse. I was just talking to somebody the other day about this, and that is sometimes when we're dealing with cluster personality types, and they tend to, drink a little bit too much, or they're taking some other sort of substances, and it alters their moods, right? It can get a little nasty during the holidays. Sometimes they like to show out a little bit more during the holidays. Some of us were worried about, am I going to go over to so and so's house? I know the cluster personality type is going to be there. I used to go through all of that, because it's going to be some drama. It's going to be some stuff if you go, but then you want to show up because you don't want to be talked about. You don't want to step on toes. You don't want people to cast shade. I know I've been through all that. But then when you get there, you're sorry you did it. Once you get there, it's like, why did I do this? Well, we're creatures of habit. We do things that, we're very familiar with, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's not very good for us. So learning how to detach, you can practice personal boundaries and say, you know what, I'm not going this year. I'm not going to the Christmas party this year because I know the narcissist is going to be there. It's not that I'm afraid of him or her. It's just that I care about myself. I'm going to be triggered. I'm going to be triggered, and I know they're probably going to try to, make a spectacle out of me and all this other kind of stuff. So I just want to wish everyone the best on what you choose to do about that, because that's another real thing, especially around family-oriented holidays such as Christmas, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. Okay, so more than likely I'm gonna do another live stream around that time. Okay, because I know Christmas is coming up, and maybe we can go ahead and we can have a Christmas party of our own, doing a live stream or something like that. Okay, so I want everyone to take care of themselves, and until next time, okay, stay tuned for more videos, stay tuned for more vlogs, and also for more live streams. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and sign out because I gotta get ready to cook. And I certainly hope everyone enjoys the rest of their evening. All right. Mwah.